Well, everyone, another intimate session for the Graphic Novel Club here at Windsor Public Library. A little bit of a lighter turnout this session, I guess, with it's just it being the three of us. So, Mike, Alicia, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And
Thanks for having us.
no problem. I should mention my name is Adam, in case anyone is seeing this after the fact. And we're here to discuss graphic novels, in particular, the one that I selected, which was Wrinkles. Wrinkles is a relatively new graphic novel. It dropped a few years ago in the 2010s by Paco Roca. We're going to have a good discussion about this, but before I ask any questions, I'm curious about general thoughts. Let's start with Alicia. What were your thoughts about the graphic novel?
So I finished the book and I put it down and I think I cried for 5 minutes because it was just so heart-wrenching. And my grandfather has Alzheimer's. We're very lucky he's not in home yet, but it's scary. You know, you're reading that and you're seeing possibly the future. Yeah. And just, you know, I just really feel for a lot of the old folks in old folks' homes whose families don't visit them as much as they should. And so it just really brought all that home. Like I really just, yeah, there was some really great moments that were really heartwarming, but there was a lot of really sad moments.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Alicia. Mike, what was your take on Wrinkles?
Well, I mean, my grandmother had Alzheimer's or dementia, and so yeah, I found it was good, but it was also really depressing.
Mm-hmm.
That was my takeaway. It's, I mean, I'm not one of those people that avoids unpleasant topics in a movie or a book, but this was definitely one of my least favorite topics to read about, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's definitely a good book.
I'd like to clarify that I did like it. I didn't dislike it just because it made me sad.
Now, we should mention Wrinkles itself is a book that deals with an older person suffering from Alzheimer's, and he is taken to an assisted living facility by his family, and it's about his time there and his relationship with some of the other people who attend the assisted living home. I sense you both had such personal experiences with this. I'm wondering how you felt the graphic novel treated the subject.
I can't comment terribly well. My grandfather right now is, he's in the very early stages. They caught it when he was in his 50s, and so he's been on medication ever since, and so his state hasn't progressed or deteriorated as far as some of the characters in the book have. My great-grandmother had it, and she died of cancer before she got to this state. But there were moments where my cousin was just a few months old and great-grandma's there holding the baby and just so excited, but has no idea who this baby is, even though she's been told multiple times that that's your great-granddaughter, you know? As far as the portrayal goes, I wish I could speak more about it. I've been very sheltered from it. I know my grandfather will forget things and then he'll get very frustrated when he forgets things because I don't know if it's just his personality type or if it's, oh, sorry, get out of here. Phone's ringing. I don't know if it's his personality type and how he responds because he's always been one who's been like very the patriarch, right? And very sure of himself and sure of his place. And so I think to forget things, he gets really flustered and then he gets angry because, well, no, I didn't forget, it's this. And it's like, okay, you know?
And Mike, and I'm sorry, I should mention, if this is something that you don't feel comfortable sharing, you don't have to, but given your personal experience with this, with your family, how did you feel the book represented depicting someone with Alzheimer's?
Well, it's pretty accurate as far as what I know. I thought the most interesting thing about it was showing their point of view, like them imagining themselves, right?
Yes.
In different situations, because I'd never I've never seen that as far as I know. And to be honest, I never really thought about it because I definitely know I've been in situations where people have told me that they thought that they were somewhere where they weren't or in a different time period than they were. But I just never thought of depicting it the way it is in this book. You know, like the woman being on the train, the Orient Express and stuff like that. So I thought that was really interesting.
Can I be honest? Those were some of my favorite moments of the book, because they just seemed so peaceful while they were reliving those histories. And then when they were brought back to the present, it was like a rude awakening, right? And so I hate to romanticize it, but I mean, what's so bad about reliving the golden days and feeling like you're still there, right? I mean, of course it's bad because it deteriorates further than that, but I mean, I liked those moments. I really liked those moments.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because a little bit later on, I want to talk about really what the book says about memory and the purpose of it. Before we do, though, I want to focus on some of the more technical aspects of the comic. I want to talk about the art primarily. What were your takes on the artwork, the art style, coloring? Did you think it was appropriate for the type of story being told? What did you like about it, and what did you dislike about it?
I thought it was beautiful. I really liked the art. I thought the colors were very, I'm looking at it right now, by the way. I'm not just texting. The colors were very relevant because I like how the old folks' home is kind of just this taupe color, this very basic color, very subdued hues. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, yes, when they're in the memories, so here's the woman you'd mentioned earlier with the Orient Express, and it's this very warm pink color, and then when you realize you're still in the old folks home, it goes back to that kind of diffused coloring. I thought that was incredibly effective and well done.
What were your thoughts, Mike? Yeah, same thing. I thought the art was perfect. Like it didn't, it didn't distract. Like I didn't. It was almost like invisible because I didn't really. It's almost like I didn't notice it. Like the coloring was perfect. The art suited the story. The color, like Alicia said, it suited the way that everyone was feeling. I think, and that drabness of being in like a hospital or a nursing home compared to like the warm memory of wherever you want to be. It was, it was smart the way that they used the art to tell the story, I thought.
And very subtle. I noticed what you were talking about for the saturation of color. I'm going to attempt to screen share. Hopefully, is this going to work? Hold on. It might work. Okay, do you see a comic?
Black. Oh, there it is. Got it.
Okay. So this is the one page of the comic where it's a memory. It's Emilio's memory as a child, being in school. And are you seeing the next page now?
Yes.
Okay. It's a very subtle transition from those very bright, vibrant yellow colors of the previous page to a more muted palette. There's still yellow, but it's not quite as vibrant or as bright.
It was so sad, that scene.
Okay. I turned it off, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
We don't really have you back, though.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to fiddle around and I can't get it to go to grid view, but anyway.
Oh, wait, hold on. My video settings are off. Well, I tried to fix this. Let's just talk a little bit more about the artwork. Primarily, let's focus on instances like that. Were there any other cases where you can remember how the artwork was used to depict information that wasn't done by dialogue or through word balloons?
I'd like to say that, the passage of time, definitely. Because I feel like this book covers, I want to say, almost a whole year. Because you get hints of the seasons outside of the window. Like, I think when they drop him off, it looks like summer. Or maybe it's fall. or kind of fall. And then you fast forward to, oh, it's Christmas, your family's coming, and you notice out the windows that there's snow on the ground, and it's very jarring. I imagine, I really appreciate that, because I imagine that feeling that I got going, oh my God, there's snow. When was there snow? When did that get there? I imagine very much that that's how the characters feel. Like I really appreciated that.
There's a really, really good sequence. Let me see if I can share this. Okay, share screen. Okay. Tell me if you can see this. Can you see this?
Yep. Oh, yes.
This scene right here was one of my favorites, when the guy's face disappears. Pardon my mouse here.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like it comes back in a sketch form, and then it's there. Like, again, no dialogue, nothing is said by the characters, and then in the next page, it's like a sketch. So now you're using the medium to tell the story, which is, of course, we used to talk about this when we were at the library, but what can a comic do that no other medium can do? And this is the perfect example of that,
That was amazing.
Yeah.
What I really appreciate about your example is it shows the stages of this degradation of his memory or his consciousness of the world around him. I think this is something that could be done in a film, but seeing the actual sequence all there on one page, it does lend some information and a certain type of feeling that I don't think you would quite get in a film.
You'd almost have to have the camera out of focus and then slowly slide into focus and slowly slide back out of focus. But even then, I don't think you'd get the same effect as this.
I think this ties into Adam, you've read Understanding Comics, right?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, Alicia, have you read Understanding Comics? Scott McCloud.
No, I don't think I have.
One of his greatest things he talks about is how the way that cartoonists draw the characters mimics the way people envision themselves in the world. So if you think about a drawing versus a film, then this is closer to how memory works, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you were to do this in a film, you'd have to have a special effect of either covering their face with material or digitizing it or blurring it. But here, this is more mimicking the way your brain constructs a face. Sometimes you'll see a person and for a brief millisecond, you don't recognize them. And then you recognize them and all their features click into place. That's what this is like to me. I think it's impossible to do that in film unless you had a different actor for that brief second,
Or the only other way in a film it could work, in my mind, is if you had, if it was an animated film.
Right.
Because you could achieve that with animation.
Right. But yeah, I'm just skimming through now to find other examples.
Well, actually, I'm just going to get you, if you can, to stop the screen share because I want to show an example.
Yeah, you know what? I thought I did. Just a minute. Here we go. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that was my problem before. I had to do that. So I'm going to share something here. With that said, I don't think this is exclusive to the medium, but this was just done really well. So are you seeing what I'm seeing, the opening page of the comic?
Yes.
Yes.
I love this sequence because I think this is a great left hook. What you have is the scene set up. Sequentially, it appears to be exactly what the character believes it is, that he's a bank manager and he's negotiating a loan with a couple. You change the page. After a little bit of a dialogue exchange, it turns out, no, it's not that. It's him reliving this memory. There's something so heartbreaking and yet just so incredible about the sequence as well. I think this 2-page sequence sets up the emotional resonance that the rest of the comic's going to have and conveys the entire story that you need to know just here and then.
And even just the emotion on his face in those 2 panels where he's kind of, and then he's like this, oh, I did it again, or just the frustration, oh my God.
Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to stop sharing. Okay, there we go. Here we go. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic use of artwork. I think even though the technique could be seen as a bit, for lack of a better term, cartoony, I think it's effective. It's very exaggerated facial expressions, great emotions portrayed by body movement. I think a more realistic style wouldn't necessarily communicate the information in an effective way as was done here.
No, I agree, not at all. And I also want to point out that you know, we criticize comic book coloring a lot, I think. And I also have a big problem in movies that because you know, I do color correction in my job, but I really can't stand color grading that calls attention to itself in film. And again, this comic is an example of a smart use of color that never calls attention to itself. Like obviously we're analyzing it so we notice it, but I think a casual reader would not notice it, and that's why I think it's so well done.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting too that you mentioned about the facial expressions and how it wouldn't have conveyed in a more realistic style, because I've been reading I think it's Through the Years. I think the first one's called that. It's a series of interviews and Q&As given by Hayao Miyazaki and essays written. And one of them, he criticizes Disney's early films because I guess what they did is they would have an actress do the motions that they wanted. I say actress because I'm thinking mainly of Snow White is where you see it the most blatantly. So they have the actress doing the motions that they want to appear in the film. And then they're basically, I think we addressed this in another comic book actually with Jolie, because they're basically tracing over what she's done.
Yeah, rotoscoping.
And it comes across as very stiff, lifeless, which is ironic because you're taking it right from life. But I agree with you here. Like we've seen a comic book where it was sketched over directly from still images, and it was very cardboard cutout. Like it didn't come across very. You couldn't emotionally attach to the characters. Where this one, like you said, you can, because it is that kind of cartoony exaggeration of the emotion.
Yeah, I feel the art, the coloring, the use of sequential art as a medium is ideal in this book. I think this is a great example to show aspiring graphic novelist. This is how you convey information in a story. Don't look at the big two publishers. Don't look at a lot of contemporary superhero novels and graphic novels, comics coming out. Those, I don't think, do a great job at showing sequential art. This does. And I think what it also does a good job at is looking at these interpersonal human relationships. And that's bleeding into my next question, which is about the relationship between Miguel and Emilio. So what was your take on this relationship that they had?
I thought it was so funny how, you know, he's like, where's my watch? Well, I don't have it, you know, and it's like, where is it? Spoiler alert, I didn't understand at the end when Miguel, when he discovers that box of all the missing artifacts under Emilio's under his bed, oh my god, mattress. I don't have dementia, I swear. But he discovers that box of all the missing things under the mattress. I didn't understand that. Did Emilio put those there, or did Miguel put those there?
Good question. What do you think, Mike?
You know what? I don't know. I think that's kind of part of the, well, not mystery, but I think it's left ambiguous on purpose, maybe. Right?
Well,
go ahead. Because if the story is constructed out of memories, then we'll never know, right?
So there's one of two possibilities. If it's Emilio, then he's doing it without knowledge. It's probably a byproduct of his dementia or his episodes he's going through where he's taking stuff and misplacing it. If it's Miguel is, pardon my language, shown to be a little bit of a shit in this graphic novel. He's exploiting people for money. He's a real shyster, this one, but a shyster with a heart of gold, I feel, deep down inside. So it could be that he's withholding stuff, storing it maybe to sell later. So it really depends upon, I think, your individual interpretation. I'm more inclined to believe it's Emilio who's storing this stuff without his own knowledge of it due to the Alzheimer's that he's suffering from. But
because Miguel looks very surprised to see it there.
mm-hmm.
To see the lump on the mattress, he looks perplexed. And at the same time, Emilio, that's a very little boy thing to do, or any child. Like, who didn't have that hiding place under the mattress or that hiding place in the back of the closet? So I could side with you, Adam, on that one, definitely. As far as the relationship goes, I think it works for the book because Emilio is a little bit straight-laced, and I think, I hate to say it this way, but I think the book would not have been as interesting had we not had Miguel, who's here just, like you said, being a little bit of a scoundrel. And I think, too, it makes it so much more at the end when you see Miguel throughout the whole thing going, you don't want to end up on the second floor. You don't want to end up on the second floor. But then at the end, he's on the second floor taking care of his friend. And it's such a selfless thing where the whole book, he's like, no, it's all about me. I'm taking people's money and stuff so that for my own interests. And then, oh, I never had a wife because I'm not interested in getting involved with other people. And then here he is taking care of his friend. Like, I think as great of a character as Emilio was, I think Miguel was the better character. He had a lot more depth to him, emotional depth and stuff. So that's my take on it.
What about you, Mike? How did you feel about this relationship between the characters?
I mean, I thought it was great. It was kind of, there's always that character. What do they call that character? The like, not the elder statesman, but like the one who's been there, who sort of eases the new character into it, and then sort of, if you have whatever optimism you might have is quickly dissipated, or not dissipated, but sort of disappears when this guy basically shatters your whatever romantic notions you might have. Like when he's sort of tearing down the married couple, the one guy who's with the woman he doesn't even know, or maybe I've got it backwards. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know that sequence. Actually, I think you have it correct.
Okay. Just things like that. There's always going to be that character there, but I mean, yeah, it's sad, but yeah, I mean, I think the relationship's great. Like, it's well done.
Did you feel they were foils at all?
What do you mean exactly?
Well, literally speaking, a foil would be someone that accents another character by representing something opposing to them or something that they don't possess. So kind of like a Laurel and Hardy situation, Laurel is the foil for Hardy because they're kind of different ends of the spectrum for their personality, body build, the way that they present themselves.
100% they're foils for each other, because if you see, Emilio is somebody in charge of giving people loans. So he's in charge of giving people money. And here's Miguel taking people's money.
Yep.
So I think even if you go that literally, but even personality-wise, yes, they're definitely foils for each other.
And I brought up Laurel and Hardy. Another reason is they even resemble kind of these older comedic duos. I mean, you have Miguel, who is shorter, stouter, and then you have Emilio, who's tall and slender. You even have kind of like the comedian straight man dynamic, where Emilio would be the straight man, and then you have the comic rabble-rouser, that's Miguel. With that said, I do think Miguel represented something very fascinating. I think he may have represented the fear of aging.
Yeah, because he's the one that's, let's go take this sports car, and oh, sure, you can have a dog. Yeah, let's get you. Oh, what happened to? Okay, we'll get you another dog. Like definitely. Or even, yeah, you don't want to end up on the second floor. And it's like, if I could be honest, the worst part about the second floor for me was the vagrant who was paralyzed, who was just sitting in a corner telling everyone to go themselves. You know, that was the scariest part of it. Otherwise, it just seemed kind of like what it was a little anticlimactic. It seemed like what you would expect a room full of people with Alzheimer's to be like. Very sad, very somber, very quiet, very a little bit repetitive, with some of the people saying the same things over and over again. But I mean, for me, it was that woman who really did it for me. It was like, oh God, that's awful. Is that a real thing? Do they actually do that?
They probably do. I mean, let's not forget that this isn't set in North America either. So, depending on what the criteria for administering people into care facilities are, Paco Roca, I want to say he's Spanish. I'm going to double check that. I think it's he's Spanish. So, I think those Spanish care facilities might have different standards for admittance. But I know even in North America, they did stuff like that a few decades ago.
Wow. I mean, wow. I don't know how I feel about that. There's nothing wrong with people who are homeless. I have no problems with them. But, you know, when they're acting like that, it's like, I don't know if I'd want them around, say, my parents or my grandparents. You know, like, that's a little bit scary.
I think the character was paralyzed, though, which was another reason they were in the care facility, which to me, you know, you already have that going on. And then you're kept in this ward full of elderly people with Alzheimer's where you can't make any connections.
Yeah. Yeah, that was another thing that wow. Just that whole situation, just her being there with the old folks, and just wow.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine.
Yeah, and this is obviously, it's not a happy-go-lucky comic. Like, it deals with some heavy material. But I appreciate the fact that it actually focuses on this. The author himself, he really wanted to do a story that practiced empathy for certain segments that he felt not a lot of people empathized with. He said there are so few times that we can empathize with an older person, and he wanted to do a book that actually allowed people to do that. I thought that was very commendable when I read that.
100%. I think it should almost be standard reading for people looking to get into that career field. I've seen things where the training that they give, I'm so sorry, what is the name for that career?
What, PSW?
That's it, PSW. Yeah, I've seen that PSW workers, they get training where they're put in this outfit, and it's a little bit like a straitjacket, but what you have cuffs around your arms, and there's straps, so you can only put your arms out so far, and same with your legs. There's straps around your ankles, so you can only put your legs out so far. And the idea is to give you an appreciation for mobility issues for the elderly. So you're walking and you can only take these small shuffling steps because I mean otherwise you're in pain, right? So it gives you an appreciation for what that's like, so to put in your shoe, to put you in their shoes. And so I think that this comic book should be standard reading for some of those courses, to just kind of add the psychological element to that as well.
You know, that brings up a good point. And I want to present this as a question for both of you. Obviously, this is dealing with some pretty heavy subject matter. How would you recommend someone to read this book? What would you say would be the point of reading this, aside from feeling sad afterwards? Because we love talking about stuff we love. We love saying, for example, I'm going to say, when I saw Civil War in theaters, I told everyone you have to watch it. This is the superhero action movie for you to watch because I thought it did everything that they were supposed to. And that's like a general example. But when it comes to a book like this, where it deals with this sort of content, how do you communicate to someone this is something you need to read or ought to read?
I think it's to empathize. I mean, there's unfortunately no fight scenes with Spider-Man and Winter Soldier, so you have to settle for.
I thought you were talking about the book.
The one downside, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think empathy. You know, I mean, there's no downside to reading a good story, I don't think. So, I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's it, I think, is to empathize with people and to just see a different side of life, I guess.
I would, I mean, because you've got me here and I love telling people to read Mouse by Art Spiegelman, and that's like, this book is cotton candy compared to that book. Like, so for me, I would hand them this book and just say, you have to read it. It's good. It's real. That's why I like it, is because it's real. It feels real. Like, yeah. So like Mike said, just to experience the reality of that.
You know, for me, I picked this book particularly after we read our last entry, which was Paul is Dead, because Paul is Dead left such a horrible taste in my mouth. I wanted like a good palate cleanser, because I wanted to be reminded, okay, graphic novels as a medium, they can be just as mundane, just as boring as any other medium. They can be as bad movies or bad novels or bad TV shows. But when they're great, they do something that I don't think any other medium quite is able to achieve. And I think Wrinkles does a fairly good job at that. With that said, they made an animated adaptation of this.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
So,
Oh, I think I read that, yeah.
So my question then would be, since neither one of you have seen the animated adaptation, what elements do you feel would be difficult to adapt into film? And what do you think just wouldn't manage to be adopted into film?
I think the part that we were talking about earlier about the sketching, that's the most fascinating, not the most fascinating, but I'd be the most curious to see how they do that part. You know?
Because it's animation and not, now what are we talking, hand-drawn animation or the computer rendered 3D animation? Because if it's 3D animation, forget about it. It's not going to hold a candle to this. But
no, it is not 3D animation. It is hand-drawn. I'm going to try to see if I can't find a trailer to show a clip of it.
I'll be honest, I feel like they probably could have gotten it fairly close. And this book is pretty episodic, so I can see them successfully turning it into a series of episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one episode starting with them stealing the car and ending with the consequences. That's the other thing. I feel like it would take away the simplicity of it, because in order to create a full half-hour episode, I feel like they'd have to add more to it, and it would become a little more cumbersome, and I think you'd miss part of the point.
Mike, what do you think?
As far as what?
Oh, I guess I was just wondering if there was anything else to add about whether or not you think there's... I'm not trying to reach for more, just I'm not sure if you completed your point, if there's more you want to add to it.
No, I mean, now that I know it's out there, I definitely want to see it. I think I'm sure it'll be good. You know? So, yeah, I'm actually looking forward to seeing it now.
Oh, do you want me to pull up a screen share of a brief trailer?
Sure,
Please,
yeah, that'd be great, yeah.
Oh, okay, it's going to be without sound, just to let everyone know.
That's okay.
Okay, are you seeing the YouTube?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're seeing now...
See, like, that's almost like, you know, an exact... what's it called? Recreation of the art style of the comic, which is great.
It's very impressive, yeah.
Mm-hmm. One thing I really like about the comic that is being shown here is the lighting, because there's a great use of lighting that's very natural, that feels very organic. There's some things here that I'm not a fan of as much, but the character designs themselves are so faithful to the graphic novel. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about the realistic looking cars outside, but I really loved there was a shot where you had the door on the left and the inside of the old folks' home on the right, and it was just that transition of lightness to darkness, and it's so impactful. It's so telling, or it really sets the mood.
Yep.
Huh.
So that's also available on Hoopla.
Oh,
Cool. Oh, good to know. Good to know.
that's awesome.
And I don't think it's that long. I think the Wrinkles film is only 85 minutes, something like that.
Oh, is it a film or is it a TV series?
No, it's a film.
Oh, okay. I was speaking to it as being a TV series.
Yeah.
My bad.
No, it's okay. It's 90 minutes long, so it's
Okay.
standard feature length.
Oh, I'm gonna watch this. Oh, I'm excited.
You know, I almost regret not being able to assign this beforehand because it would be interesting to hear your take on this versus the film adaptation. Of course, we always have a film club, so who knows? That might come up in the future. Also available at Windsor Public Library, but you know.
That'd be so cool.
Oh yeah. I don't know if we're gonna talk about this, but can we talk about the ending?
Yes, please.
Because honestly, I don't know if it's what my problem is, but I have looked at that last page 100 times and I do not get it.
Which one?
The last page 93. The last page of the story.
It's gonna be a bit for me. I'm scrolling through.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I believe it's that one where it goes from his face to a sketch.
No.
Oh.
There's that, but then there's White, and then there's the woman on the train, and then there's the last page with the dog. There's a shortcut, Alicia. If you just go page list, you can just skip ahead to whatever page you want.
Oh my God, my life. Thank you.
It happens to the best of us.
93, you said, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's page 93 for the comic, and I think, what is it for the digital page count? It's 100 for digital page count.
Yeah.
And again, if anyone's watching this later on and they're interested in reading
this
Wrinkles,
one.
it's on Hoopla through Windsor Public Library.
With
So,
the dog in the elevator, right?
Right.
you know what? Let me screen share this one just so we can all take a look at it while we're talking.
Because, yeah, I'm with you, Mike. I did not understand it.
Right. And I thought, okay, maybe I'll read it again. No, don't understand it. Because
Sorry.
Well, go ahead.
You know what I think happens? With the red door, that's just like a regular door. But then, so the first panel is real life. And then you flip over to his mind where he's holding this bread and he's hitting the elevator button. And the dog goes in the elevator, but the door's shut. And so he's afraid that the dog's getting pulled. You know what I mean? So
Right.
the elevator's moving with the dog on it. But then he opens the door because it's a door. It's not an elevator. And the dog's okay.
This is very interesting you're bringing this up because I think this is so subtle it would go past a lot of people. This door is obviously not the same door here.
Yes.
Right.
So I think that's something, especially even here, you see a similar structure for the door. Unless it's a mistake by the colorer, which I somehow doubt.
No way.
I think it might be a bleeding together of reality and his memory.
It's interesting because it could be that. It could be one is an exterior of the door, the other is an interior of the door. Although that still doesn't explain why it's an elevator.
Well, see, okay, in the second panel, you see a reflection of him, right?
Mm-hmm. You can see that right here.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking at my own. I should be looking at yours. Okay. So, okay, the first panel, you have the red door. He's holding the dog. The second panel, he's in front of the elevator, and it's a different door. And then, so in the sixth panel, there's no dog. Now, I know that the idea is that he's supposed to be caught on the other side of the door, right? But is that really what's happening?
So what's happened is the third panel, he goes into the elevator, and in the fourth panel, the doors of the elevator have closed. So he's on the elevator. It's the other way around. The dog's not on the elevator. It's him on the elevator, and the dog's not. So what probably happened in real life is he went through the door. The dog didn't go through the door, and so he's panicking because he thinks he's on an elevator. Because even if you notice, the number panel switches sides, I think.
Well, what happens, going to what you're saying, there's the door, it looks like for the elevator on the left-hand side, and then here on the right-hand side is the actual door behind which we have Milo.
So he's inside, right?
It's a weird one to call.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
The dog is so cute.
the dog is adorable.
Yeah.
So
I
I
can
think
feel his tail wagging.
I think just using deduction, you could come up with a pretty simple explanation for what's happening. There's probably an elevator through the door. Once he goes through the elevator, he realizes the dog is on the other side. He's probably all the way through the door. He left him all the way back there. But there's still so much ambiguity. I do agree. There is something about the sequence that doesn't quite feel right. And I don't know if it is intentional or not. It could be an artistic mistake. Honestly, it could be. And let's not, dismiss that as a possibility. But if it's not, since we are talking about how perception is malleable in this world, because again, we're dealing with people who suffer from Alzheimer's, we don't necessarily know exactly what's happening. And we have this idea of not so much the unreliable narrator, but the unreliable narrative at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Great.
I'll just say that I'm gonna bet money it's not. There's no mistake here. It's the last scene in the book. Everything is based on coloring and flashbacks, and I think it's very specific. But I guess the only question is it deliberately vague, or is the answer so obvious, but we're just not seeing it? But then again, it can't be obvious because it's the last page, and it's obviously meant to be something more than it is. Because if it's just what it is, it's nothing, right? Like it can't just be him worrying about the dog. That can't be the ending, if you ask me.
It could just be the gentleman's own confusion, or maybe confusion's the wrong word, but I mean, because we could even say, is the dog even there?
That's what my original thought was that is the dog there? Because in the sixth panel, the dog's not there. Yes, it's supposed to be under the door, but it's a little bit confusing. And then in the first panel, his feet are not fully drawn, the dog, and then in the second last panel, the dog's there, but he's not in the same panel as the old man. And in the last panel, you don't see either one of them. So I think that's deliberate.
There is something to this. To back this up, if we just go to the previous page in the comic, we have a scene where one of the elderly patients with Alzheimer's is going over to have a conversation with the woman that's been fantasizing about being in her youth on the Orient Express. They're not actually talking to each other. They're talking to these past memories, these ideas they have, where they're playing into each other's fantasies, but they're not actually just having an interaction. This is preceded with Miguel taking care of Emilio. And what happens is we have this moment of hope, this beautiful moment where after seeing a blank face from Miguel, details are slowly sketched in and we do see his face, and then they fade again. This inability to connect because of his Alzheimer's. And I think these three sequences sequentially being back to back to back might support Mike's argument, this idea of these connections which do exist in some way, especially for the patients or the sufferers from Alzheimer's, but in another way don't. A horribly depressing note to end that question on, but I think there is something to it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Well, it's also worth noting that the last scene of the book is not with the protagonist, right? Like he's gone by the third last page or the fourth last. So
That's right.
It's definitely worth analysis, I think.
I agree. Even going backwards a little bit, when we first have Miguel giving the dog to I forget the character's name, but the one who has the scene at the very end, there's this contrast between the red leash and harness and the blue bedroom that he's in. And then we see the contrast between the blue and red for the doors in that very last sequence. So there is a lot to extrapolate there. This interplay between colors, between red and blue, between yellow and green is a theme that happens all throughout the book. I'm not going to say I know the answer for why that is, but there's definitely something to it.
I'm even going to go so far as to say, like, because it's Miguel giving the gentleman the box with presumably with the dog in it, and basically before that you see him what's her name? I can't think of her name. I have to call my children. And what does he give her? A cell phone, and he types in the phone number so that she can call them. And so then he gives the gentleman the box with the red leash. And again, we're presuming that that's where the dog came from. But maybe I wonder almost if it's a I am going to blank on the word for this. Oh my god. The story arc where the character is forgiven by the end. Redemption, thank you. Yeah. So I wonder if it's Miguel's redemption. Is we're seeing him taking care of Emilio. We're seeing him giving the phone number and the phone to the lady pre-dialed so that she can talk to her children. We're seeing this old man with his dog, and well, he has this kind of terrifying moment with the dog. He's happy with the dog. I don't think it's a real dog. I think he just gave him an empty box and a leash. But the guy is not in reality, right? He's in his own memory. So, and he seems so happy with his dog.
There's another interpretation for that final page. Is the whole sequence with him on the elevator a flashback? A flashback for what happened to the other dogs that he had?
That's what I was thinking.
No.
Yeah, it's that's how the dog died.
Oh my god, no.
But
dogs don't die.
But in the present, or in his memory, in his good memory, or in his state of mind, dog's still there.
And that would actually sequentially make sense with the position of the door. If Milo was just on the other side of the door and it closed, if those 4 panels in between those sequences were just in his mind, then that would actually make sense for the position of the door and for everything else going on. In fact, the other side of the door being blue and not red may even have evoked for him the color of the elevator door. Of course, now I'm wildly speculating, but I think there might be something to it. And there's no dead dogs. Don't worry, Alicia. Okay. Yeah, Alicia, you're fine here. Yeah.
Actually, you know what? I want to take it one step further. I think on this last page, the only panels that are real are the first and the last through...
The last one.
The last... I don't know. No, I think the last 2 at least, because that's him with this new dog, right? Everything in between that is him in the past, right?
I would say the very first panel on that page and the final 3, I would argue, are the ones where he's actually in the present, and the other ones might be his flashbacks.
Because of the door.
Because of the door, yes.
Yeah.
But here's the problem, though, is the third last panel, when he says Milo, the door is blue, and that matches the door in the other middle panels, right?
So I think because he's on the other side of the door.
Yeah, the interior side of the door could be a different color from the exterior.
Like my front door is beige on the outside, but it's white on the inside. Like,
okay.
That's it. And I think, Adam, what you said as merit, like the colored door reminded him of the elevator.
Again, there's no way to verify this. This is all by interpretation, but...
well, no, we could email the author.
We can, because, he doesn't have anything better to do than win Eisner Awards.
Well,
we will be getting to that in a moment.
We'll have a fault in your stars kind of moment. We'll go and visit him, and we'll find out what's real, and he'll be this crotchety old man who's lost faith in humanity.
Are you saying we should talk to John Green?
I mean, he's probably got connections.
So moving away from that, let's talk about that theme we were discussing earlier, memory. What does Wrinkles seem to say about memories and how they construct identity?
I really liked Wrinkles as the title because I think I had read some kind of a theory a long time ago. I don't know how true this theory is, but that like Alzheimer's was the wrinkles on your brain disappearing so that you can't remember stuff. So that's kind of what I took from the title was wrinkles. I mean, obviously wrinkles could be wrinkles on the skin. I also enjoy like Wrinkle in Time. I hope people have read that or at least watched it. And how the wrinkles allow you to skip forward and they use it as a way of traveling across the universe. So if the universe is envisioned as a sheet of paper, a piece of fabric, then when you bunch it up, those wrinkles in the fabric allow you to travel from the tops of the wrinkles to get to different places faster. So I really kind of had that imagery as well with the memory, and they're traveling instead of traveling forwards in their memory, they're traveling backwards. They're skipping over time with these wrinkles. I don't know. That's what I took.
Yeah, I think that's more than a theory. I think it's it's a pretty legitimate theory that I think memory is stored or I think it's related, right? And there's some. I remember reading something about the smoothness of a brain having less cognitive ability or something, but this is all just I can't remember, but I do remember I came across that too. So yeah, it's a good title.
Mm-hmm. There is this latent fear I think a lot of people have about memory, and that's they're basically their memory. That if you have something like Alzheimer's, my coworker's loud, sorry, but but if you have something like Alzheimer's or dementia, you lose your identity because you lose your memory of who you are. And I think that's a fear a lot of people have. I don't want to say I support that idea because I think there's more to identity than just that. But when it comes to the idea of what does identity mean for these people, does Emilio lose his identity when he starts suffering from his episodes? Do any of the patients? And I don't know. It's a very difficult subject to talk about, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are.
I don't think so, because you have there's two old couples where where one of them has dementia really bad, and there's the one where it's the wife and her husband has it really bad, and she's moved into this home to be with him and to help take care of him, and how she whispers in his ear every day and it makes him smile, and they ask, well, what did you whisper? And I just cheater, and there's this beautiful memory that goes along with it. And my uncle, when my great grandmother was she was on her deathbed, and like I said, she died before the Alzheimer's got really bad. But she had cancer and she was on her deathbed, and so she could hear us. She was aware of us, but she was sleeping a lot. And we were there, and my uncle went and whispered something in her ear, and her foot twitched. And I remember, what did you say to her? What did you say to her? My uncle's like, no, that's a secret between me and my grandma. And I'm like, no, I gotta know, because I was just a little thing, right? So, no, like our memories do make up a lot of who we are, but I think there's still that core of us that can never disappear. I have to believe that, but that's just personal belief. I don't know. I've never gotten to that stage where it's so bad,
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I do think that I don't know. I think our memories are are so tied to our identity that I think they're almost one and the same. Maybe not 100%, but I don't know if it would, because I know that with Alzheimer's, there's different levels of memory that disappear, right? Like even in the book, they talk about how I think they said recent memories disappear, but like old memories are still there. And from what I know, they even come in more into focus. But
Yeah.
if you were to lose all your memories, to me, I don't know if there would be any identity left.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know for sure, but I wonder if there would be.
But I wonder about that because if you think about it, you have a newborn baby and they don't have any memories yet because they're just new, right? But they still have their personalities. Like you can have babies who are really quiet, who are just watching and seeing what's going on, and you have other babies who are really loud and really responsive, right? And you have other babies who laugh a lot or smile a lot, and so I have to believe that there's some core part of us that it's just imprinted in us somehow, that it has nothing to do with our memories. It's just who we are, you know? Like maybe there are bigger parts of personality, like because someone could have anxiety really bad because of past experiences. But once they lose those scarring memories, maybe they become more themselves because they're not hindered by that anxiety anymore. Can we just steal some Alzheimer's patients and just like learn about it? Like, is human experimentation still a taboo? Like, can we do this? This is a
Well,
joke, of course.
well, there are, of course, experiments being done in neurology about this, trying to figure out how much of our identity is really based upon memory. In terms of this book, what I really like about Wrinkles, and the reason I asked this question, is that I don't think it necessarily answers it. I don't think it really posits that Emilio is any less Emilio because of his Alzheimer's, but it doesn't refute that either.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really appreciate about this book is that it gave all the characters dignity, even when they're going through one of the most indignant, humiliating experiences a lot of people face, because a lot of patients with Alzheimer's do feel humiliated initially. They're losing track of memory. They're losing certain motor ability and functions. And yeah, it's a very hard process for people suffering through this.
And
And
there's a moment at the beginning where he says they don't have to treat us like kids, and
yes,
it's true. It's true.
I would recommend for anyone who likes Wrinkles, maybe to give yourself some time and not delve into another sad book right after. But there's a fantastic graphic novel memoir by Sarah Leavitt. She's a Canadian author, and it was a book called Tangles, which was released a few years ago, actually in 2010. It got some rave reviews, and this book, it depicts her mother's struggle with Alzheimer's.
Oh,
And it's a very personal and realistic depiction. And a lot of the questions we asked about when it came to the conversation around Wrinkles, they're brought up again for this book.
I really
So,
want to read this now.
yeah, I would highly recommend it, again, by Sarah Leavitt. It's called Tangles. And just on a similar note, for anyone who liked the illustration or writing style of Paco, check out The House. The House is also available on Hoopla, and he was awarded a 2020 Eisner Award for this graphic novel. It again deals with family, sense of identity, and different issues that are very realistic based upon a very tangible emotional experience. Again, The House by Paco Roca. Do recommend that if you liked Wrinkles.
Thank you.
With that said, we're about an hour up, and I guess we should just give final thoughts on the graphic novel. Mike, what's your final take on it?
Really good, and definitely something. This is a rare graphic novel that I think I would recommend to, like, say, my mother. I think the only graphic novel I've ever had her read is Essex County, and this is probably another one I would recommend to her.
Great.
So, yeah, really good.
Alicia?
I really liked it. I think it's important. I think, maybe you're scared to read this because of life experience or whatever, but I think this is a very important novel to read because it shows very real emotion, very real situations, and things that could be very real for different people in life, like many of us, like look at out of 3 people, 2 out of 3 people have known someone with Alzheimer's in this group.
Mhm.
I don't know if you have, Adam, but
Not in my family, but I do know people who have suffered from this. So I do have some experience with this. Yeah.
yeah, it's very important, I think. I don't think we should shy away from things just because it'll make us feel sad. I think the books that make us feel sad are just as important, if not more important, than the books that make us feel good.
No, I agree. Since she's not here, our ghosting member for tonight, Jolie, said, I give the book a 9 exclamation mark. So fun and so sad. I don't think you can get a better concise description of the book than that. I loved it. My exposure to it originally was the film adaptation, and then I read the graphic novel. Between the two, I think the graphic novel is a much stronger work, although the film is worth checking out. It has a very strong voice cast for the English dub, so I do recommend it. And with that said, it is available for future reads on Hoopla through the Windsor Public Library. But that's enough about Wrinkles. Let's talk about our graphic novel for next time. And I decided let's get away from, these kind of heavy subjects. Let's talk about teen angst, murder, and ghost. So we're going to talk about the graphic novel Sheets by Brianna Thumler.